Hi there and welcome to the channel of A Disappointed Man with me, Jason Kennedy, The Disappointed Man. And in this video I'll be talking about this book, Thomas Mann's 1951, The Holy Sinner. Now prior to this I'd only read one work by Mann, his novella, Mario and the Magician, and very good it was too. It was contained in this black brick of a book along with 8 other modern novels. That was way back in the 90s. Here we are in 2022 reading Mann again. Now before I start the review, I have to say there is a departure in this video. I will briefly touch upon a contemporary political issue. No, it's not Nancy Pelosi's recent trip to Taiwan, but it could be quite a polarizing topic, so forgive me, but it's kind of unavoidable because of the nature of this book and the kind of personal response it seeks to evoke. So with those words of warning, let us begin. In The Holy Sinner, Thomas Mann reworks and expands a medieval verse epic, Gregorius by Hartmann von Aue, written around 1190 in Middle German and itself taken from tales of French chivalry. Now I have an English translation of this work, I'll link to it below. I found it aesthetically very dissatisfying. The line length is far too short for my taste, varying between iambic trimeter and tetrameter, but you can look at it and judge for yourself. However, the prefatory material was fascinating because it very concisely outlined all of the changes that Mann had made in reworking this epic, and these changes very much coincided with what I enjoyed most about this novel, and that put me in mind of when you watch a Hitchcock film and then go back to the novel upon which it is based. You'll so often find that in the movie all the best things about it were added by Hitchcock himself, and that really speaks to the fact that in the case of Hitchcock and Mann, you're dealing with someone who is very much a master of their medium. Now the action of Gregorius and therefore of The Holy Sinner bears a striking similarity to the Oedipus myth, centering as it does upon incestuous relationships and exile. However, all of this action takes place within a thoroughly Catholic universe, and I'm now going to give a brief summary of the story, which will for some be considered a spoiler. So if you don't wish to know what happens, I advise you to skip forward 2 minutes or so. Thank you. Okay. At the beginning, the Duke and Duchess of Grimwald are happily married, ruling over their kingdom which borders the North Sea. However, they have no heir. Finally, the Duchess falls pregnant. She gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl, but dies during the process. Years later, the father dies. While he lies in state, the brother and sister embark upon an incestuous affair. This in turn produces a pregnancy. Horrified at what they've done, they seek counsel, and by way of penance, it's agreed that the brother will depart as a knight for the Holy Land, where he's soon killed, and the sister will retreat to a castle, having pledged never to marry. The baby is delivered in secret. It's a boy. Its fate is left in the hands of God. It's placed inside a cask on a boat and accompanied by a tablet, which is extremely important, prepared by his mother. Upon this is written the story of his origins and also a demand that he be taught how to read so he can see his story for himself. There is also a quantity of gold which travels with him. Left at the mercy of God, the boat is pushed out into the waves and drifts through the English Channel. It lands on the shores of a small island, having been found by some fishermen. It's dragged in, and the abbot of a monastery beholds the infant and decides he should be raised as the son of a fisherman and his family without knowledge of his origins, and he takes the tablet into safe keeping. There are now 2 strands to the action, events back at home and those on the small island. Back in the kingdom, the boy's mother is being wooed by Roger the Goatbeard, the aggressive ruler of a neighbouring kingdom. However, she cleaves to her pledge never to marry, and Penelope-like strings him along for a number of years until finally he can take no more. He invades her kingdom and lays siege to the city of Bruges, adamant that she will be his wife. Back on the island, meanwhile, the boy who has been baptized Gregorius is being raised in the house of a fisherman and his wife with many brothers and sisters, unaware that he is a foundling, unaware of the existence of the tablet, until when he is 17 he discovers the truth. He confronts the abbot, who hands over the tablet, and upon reading this, Gregorius is both liberated and horrified, and announces his intention to become a knight and to go in search of his parents. He boards a boat which duly blows him straight back to the city of Bruges mid-siege, so that the two strands of action combine once more. Gregorius engages Roger in single combat and drags him back through the gates of the city of Bruges, thus putting an end to the wooing war and establishing himself as a favourite at court. Indeed, a clamour now arises for the Duchess to rescind her pledge never to marry and to take Gregorius as her husband. This would of course be a union of a son and a mother, and it duly transpires and in turn produces two more children. However, after 3 years, the truth outs once again, and another round of penance begins. The mother will live a destitute life attending to the sick, and Gregorius goes off and identifies a rock in the centre of a lake which he has himself chained to, and he will spend 17 years there, while the mother will spend 20 years engaged in her activities. And there, I think I've said enough to give you an idea of just how improbable the events are of this story, but how charged they are with symbolism. And I think the interesting thing is what Mann does in reworking his material for a contemporary audience, and that's what we'll turn to now. The first thing Thomas Mann does is introduce a recognisable narrator, Clemens the Irishman, a Catholic priest. However, very strangely, this priest announces that through him is speaking the spirit of storytelling, and this means that he is not able to be confined to a temporal or a linguistic frame, and that has extremely powerful consequences for the style in which this book proceeds. And I'll just read you the comment of the narrator on the question of language in his tale. It goes like this: "For now I begin to write and address myself to a tale at once frightful and highly edifying, but it is quite uncertain in what language I write, whether Latin, French, German, or Anglo-Saxon, and indeed it is all the same. For say I write Theodish, such as the Germans speak who live in Helvetia, then tomorrow British stands on the paper, and it is a Breton book that I have written. By no means do I assert that I possess all the tongues, but they run all together in my writing and become one, in other words, language. For the thing is so, that the spirit of narration is free to the point of abstraction, whose medium is language in and for itself, language itself, which sets itself as absolute, and does not greatly care about idioms and national linguistic gods. That indeed would be polytheistic and pagan. God is spirit, and above languages is language." Now, what this lofty statement does is prepare the stage for a performance of extraordinary verbal energy, as, through the mouthpiece of our garrulous Irish priest, pours forth a stream of language which delivers on its promise that all tongues will run together as one. Mann even incorporates Americanisms into his reworking of this medieval material, and I found the texture of this narrative as a result incredibly pleasurable, as words from many languages jostle against one another on the page. But contributing in equal measure was the figure of the narrator himself, who's extremely well developed and offers very amusing commentary on the events that he's relating. And in that respect, The Holy Sinner reminded me very much of Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, which of course also centres upon a foundling who believes he has engaged wrongly, as it happens, in incestuous relations with his mother. There is, however, one key difference between these narrators. The difference is this: in The Holy Sinner, the narrator's comments are inflected by his foreknowledge of the story he's relating. And what this means is, my spoiler is not really a spoiler at all, because you will gain rather than lose if you yourself know the outline of the story before you begin reading, because you'll otherwise be required to read this book twice in order to extract its full value. Another area where Mann greatly expands upon the source material is in his characterization of the abbot who discovers the infant who will be baptized, Gregorius, and this father-son relationship is beautifully presented, and it culminates in an extremely powerful and beautiful dialogue after Gregorius has discovered part of the truth about himself and confronts the abbot. And what lends this such power is that we know the secret that the abbot is keeping, and we also know that his true desire is that Gregorius succeed him as abbot of the monastery. And as the conversation unfolds, we see the greatness of the abbot's soul as he is prepared to lay aside his own desires and allow Gregorius to make a free choice over what will be his destiny. The way this dialogue is framed forces us as readers to ask ourselves an extremely difficult question. Could we, in similar circumstances to those in which the abbot finds himself, be as good as him? Could we set aside our deepest desires for the benefit of another? And this is just one of many such incidents in this novel, and that's why I say that unavoidably the holy sinner is going to provoke an extremely personal response. And I just want to focus on a second episode, and that is of Gregorius's penance on his rock. It's at this moment that this review will briefly take on a political hue, because when reading of Gregorius's penance, where he has himself chained to a rock in the center of a lake, and he believes this penance will last forever unless God shows him mercy, I was prompted to search through the contemporary landscape and to think, could anyone today engage in such an act of penance for their sins? Would anyone wish to throw themselves upon God's mercy? And it doesn't seem to be a very popular view. The God-fearing aspect of the world of the holy sinner has departed, and today men very much pass judgment upon themselves and are able to escape being judged for what they do. However, looking about me, I do find one figure I would latch onto as a modern day Gregorius, and that is Julian Assange, the editor of WikiLeaks, who is on his rock in HMP Belmarsh, slowly but surely being turned into a hedgehog. And in his case, the sins for which he must do penance are not even his own. They are those of others. And that speaks to me in terms of the world we now live in compared with that of Mann's novel. I will leave it there, and I think I've said enough. I will conclude by saying this is a great book. I'm truly looking forward to reading my next Mann work, which will be Death in Venice, and I will review that too on my channel. But for now, I'm going to leave you with my usual mantra: be safe, be strong, and until the next time, nanu nanu.